to show that in an anarcho-capitalist society, any free riders would have a tough time trying to interact with individuals who have done their fair share. The main point here is to emphasize that even if it appears that self-interest in the short run will have a crippling effect, the concerns of the long run are for all parties involved to cooperate. Well, this simple two-person example can be extended to 3 or 4 or 5 person and so on with the same result, and the same result will always appear. If in the long run it pays to cooperate, people will cooperate in the long run. Thus, there we go. Thus, those anarcho-capitalist societies that banded together and each pitched in their $500 would long outlast the ones composed of free riders. So that's my answer. Perhaps not all anarcho-capitalist societies would solve the free rider problem, but those that did would be the ones that survived and thrived and were able to fend off B without the state forcing them to finance a war. As this lecture has gone on long enough, and you've seen me mostly read this piece of paper, I will simply try to nip in the bud a few frequently asked questions that are bound to be stirring in a few heads in this room. Go away. You're not supposed to know that yet. Won't the police just fight amongst each other? Won't A's police just fight B's police if there's a disagreement? Well, probably not. Bloodbaths are costly and economically backward-ass ways of solving problems. That's why they are usually done only by states. To suggest that police forces would continually clash and fight is absurd because such behavior is horribly bad for business. Not only do many people, that is, people financing the police, find violence, especially unseemly amounts of it, reprehensible, but wars are not cheap things to fight. It is much more likely that police agencies would solve these problems civilly amongst themselves, or like private individuals, simply to submit their disputes to a neutral third-party arbitrator. Well, won't the police just become another state? Yeah. What's to stop the police simply from becoming a protection racket and extorting money from its customers? Well, obviously this could happen. But unlike the modern day police, which are the very definition of a protection racket, if you don't pay your fees, taxes, they will come and arrest you. There would be other police services who could band together to put down this aggressor. If A's police decides to run amok, and all of society flock to B's police or C's police, and they pay to stop A's police. This is in very real contrast to what would happen if a band of gangsters captured the monopolistic state apparatus, where nothing can be done. This has happened countless times throughout Central and South America. In fact, very recently, you can see its effects. But couldn't all the independent protection agencies, all protection services, just bind together into a cartel and simply dominate everybody? Well, once again, this could happen, but the reason people bind together to extort other people is because they are greedy. But if A's police and B's police and C's police are all bound together to extort payment, it would make sense for A's police, who are clearly greedy, to take something a little off the top or do a little less work. But B's police and C's police don't like to be exploited any more than anyone else and would try to put this aggression down. The very thing that brings cartels together is ultimately the very thing that leads to the dissolution. And finally, what about the poor? How are they supposed to afford all these luxurious protections and courts and whatnot? Well, first of all, it must be recognized that unlike the monopolistic state-run system now, there would be many degrees of protection, courts, and whatnot. Instead of everybody being forced to pay for a Cadillac police, BMW courts, and Ferrari militaries, people will now get to choose among many alternatives, such as Honda cops, and Toyota justice, and bicycle laws. On the free market, there are options. Some people may simply not pay for police and courts, and this would be fine. They would not be able to utilize these services, but that's their own decision. The courts, but they could not use unless the police and courts decided voluntarily to allow them to use them as an act of charity. Private businesses giving to charity is not a rare occurrence. So why should it be unheard of in anarcho-capitalism? But supposing the poor person really wants to bring a case against some criminal that has wronged him, but can't afford to use the courts, and suppose he's given no charity. Well, he could sell part of his claim to somebody who could represent his case. If A wants to sue B, but wishes to use C's courts, A can tell C, say, look here, I've got this case where I'll likely get $50,000 bucks, but I have no courts of my own, as I am poor. If you take up my case, I'll give you $10,000 of my winnings. This might sound like a fine deal to C, and C will take up the case. The numbers are arbitrary, but you get the point. Or someone, still A, unable to afford services, can find a lawyer to work for them on a contingency favor. That is, the lawyer, if the lawyer should win the case, the lawyer gets part of the sum awarded, but if the lawyer loses, A doesn't owe the lawyer anything. This kind of system already exists in the present day. And there are probably several other ways the issues of the poor in an anarcho-capitalist society can be addressed. But time is scarce, and I've already used up enough of yours. See you there. What have we learned? Well, hopefully by now you can see that anarchy doesn't mean this, and capitalism isn't as bleak as all of this. Yeah. I have advocated for anarcho-capitalism in the hope that it is in several ways better than the way we live under. It is several ways a better way to live than under any state, no matter how benevolent the state might be. But as I said in the last lecture, I hope everything I have just told you is wrong. I hope I've made some terrible mistakes, and anarcho-capitalism is bad, and the state is good, and I've just got some wires crossed. I want to love Big Brother, because if I'm wrong, there's something I can do about it. I can change, there's hope. I can join in the righteous statism and declare that I have been wrong, and that I will serve the greater good. I will serve that which is greater than me. But I sense dimly that I am not. Our two initial premises are strikingly clear, and our conclusions follow directly. Even the granting that the state can do good things. Look at this fine institution, for instance. This fine one. That is no justification for having a state. If I steal your radio to use it at a YMCA event, it doesn't matter how happy I've made other people. I have no right to steal your radio to begin with. While at first this anarcho-capitalist society might sound bad, anarchy and capitalism must be two of the most contested words in the modern day. I hope that after you leave this lecture, you will continue to think about the things I've said. I hope you'll look at your daily life and you'll see that there's a reason why the DMV takes so long. There's a reason why there's so many car accidents on public roads. There is a reason why wars are fought pointlessly and why cops are so rude and why the court systems are so clogged. But there's also a reason to ask why. Why should it be this way? Why should we not support voluntary interaction? Why should we not advocate personal responsibility? Why should we be content to submit to a band of self-righteous thieves and crooks? The reason for all these travesties, from unwarranted invasions of personal liberty to the mass slaughter of innocent, law-abiding, loving, good, and decent people, does not spring from human reason, but rather it has a name. And its name is the state, and it is bad. They are all bad, and it is for these reasons that we must rid ourselves of it. Thank you. Now it's time for the question and answer period. Hopefully it won't get as crazy as last time. It might. To whoever asked either the most insightful or the best question, I already said this previously, or the question most original I've ever thought of, there are two books that you can actually win. I just thought about this on the way here. You can get either Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt, which I actually used part of for this, and The Market Economy Reader, which are both good. You can have two people are going to win, and you can just decide amongst yourselves. That's a fine way to show how anarchy works. Mike.